Hello and welcome back to Professional Tutors. At Professional Tutors, we've got a unique team of heads of department who came together to deliver quality education to our learners in the UK and the worldwide. Now, the big question today, does a glass of water have any energy? Now, if the answer is yes, then we're going to use the ideas about kinetic theory and states of matter to explain this. We'll come back to this. So in today's lesson, we're going to learn what is meant by internal energy. Now here is the list of keywords which you need to use while answering the questions in exam. That's one of the exam techniques to get better grades. Do the particles in a substance, they stay still or they are constantly moving? The answer is they don't stay still. They are in constant random motion. Now, if they are constantly moving, that means they must have some sort of energy. They must have some energy even before you start heating them. Now, if you look at these three states of matter, the arrangement of particles in a solid, in a liquid, and in a gas, the particles of substance in each of different states, they are constantly moving, and that's even before we start heating them. So, for example, in a solid, the particles, they vibrate along a fixed position. In a liquid, the particles are free to flow. And in gas, the particles, they are far away from each other and they are moving constantly in a random motion. So if they are moving, that means they must have some energy. And that is what you call the internal energy. So internal energy relates to the particle's motion and the particle's position. Now, here we have to look at two different types of energies. One is the kinetic energy, which is due to the motion of the particles. So kinetic energy means it's the movement energy. So anything which moves must have kinetic energy. The second type of energy we're looking at is the potential energy. And that is because of the position of the particles. Because the particles are constantly moving, that means they are constantly changing the position as well. And because they're changing the position, that they must have potential energy as well. And the internal energy of a substance is the sum of kinetic energy of all the particles and the potential energy of all the particles. So to conclude, if you have to write in exam what is internal energy, your answer should be the internal energy is a sum of kinetic energy and the potential energy of all the particles in a substance or a system. Now we are back to that question from where we have started. Does a glass of water have any energy? If the answer is yes, then we have to explain that in terms of two types of energies. The first one is kinetic energy, and the second one is potential energy. Now, because the particles in this glass, they are constantly moving. Now, if they're moving, then they must have kinetic energy. And also, the particles, they are constantly changing position. Now, if they're changing position, that means they must have potential energy as well. Now, if you combine these two things, because the particles in this glass, they have kinetic energy and they also have potential energy. And we know the internal energy of any substance in this case, a glass of water. So internal energy is a sum of kinetic energy and the potential energy of all the particles. In this system, in this case, it's a glass of water. Next question we're going to look at, how could we increase the internal energy of the substance? Now we know that internal energy is a sum of kinetic energy and the potential energy of the particles. Now, if we can increase the kinetic energy of the particles, that means we can increase the internal energy of the system. Now, the way we're going to increase the kinetic energy of all the particles is by heating it. So when we heat any substance, the particles in the substance, they'll gain thermal energy and they move faster. And when they move faster, they gain kinetic energy. And when there's an increase in the kinetic energy, there will be an increase in the internal energy. The second way of increasing the internal energy of a substance is to increase the potential energy of the particles. And the way we can do that is to make them change their position. And one way of doing that is a change of state. For example, if we melt a solid to turn that into a liquid, let's see the difference in the arrangement of particles. In a solid, the particles, they are vibrating along a fixed position, and in liquid, they're free to flow. Now, because they're changing position quite often in liquid, that means they have got more potential energy in a liquid state. Because they've got more potential energy as compared to particles in a solid, that means they have got more internal energy. So two ways of increasing the internal energy of a system is either by increasing the kinetic energy of the particles, which we can do by heating it, or the second way is to increase the potential energy of the particles, which can be done by the change in the state. Thanks for that. That's all for today. Stay connected. Please like and subscribe for our upcoming videos.